Hello everyone and welcome to this NNUG meetup. My name is Oddbjörn and together with Håkan and Torstein we'll be your host for this evening. For the ones that are new to the group, welcome. And here's a little bit about us. We are part of the .NET Foundation and we are an independent user group with focus on .NET. We tend to focus on talks and subjects based on practical experience and is by developers for developers. We are also always interested in people that have something to present. If you have something you would like to present, please contact us either by email or by Twitter. And please subscribe to the YouTube and Twitch channel. We would also like to thank our sponsors. Without them, this meetup would not be possible to arrange on a regular basis. The NNUG board consists of these people. These are the ones that organize the meetups, and please contact any of us if you have any questions or comments. We also have an NNUG Cloud Challenge right now, where you can complete a set of modules on Microsoft Learn to learn about how you can enable digital transformation and identify ways to migrate and modernize applications with Azure. This is a competition that starts right now and will end after a week. From those who have completed the most modules, there will be a winner that will get a Microsoft backpack. Also, of the ones asking the best technical questions during the talk, we will draw a winner of a Microsoft backpack. You can also get a digital badge by visiting the link on the screen. Today we are so lucky to have Jonah Andersson here to talk about learning experience from migrating .NET applications to Azure. The presentation will start soon, and there will be a Q&A session afterwards in about 50 minutes. Please ask questions during the talk for the Q&A afterwards. So without further ado, I give the word over to Jonah.
Hi, everyone. Yes, hi. Yeah, thank you for having me today. Today, I will be talking about my learned experiences from migrating .NET applications to Azure. So let me just introduce myself. As you all know, my name is Jonah Andersson. I am a software developer here in Sweden. I'm also a Microsoft MVP and a technical trainer, and also the founder and co-organizer of Azure User Group Sweden. And today I want to discuss with you about my cloud mission story, as well as my migration story, the lessons that I learned as a software developer in that cloud journey, as well as my personal or what I've gathered, like migration tips to Azure. And first, I wanted to share with you that I had this mission to lift an application to the cloud, and I was like a superwoman who led that project, one of the leaders of that project. And I wanted to share with you about this image. I studied agile system development, and this is one of my favorite cartoon image because it describes us, especially for us developers or in the project teams, the reality of projects, because we developers can interpret a business requirement differently from a business owner, from a tester, or a QA perspective. But our point here is that every project is unique, and what makes a project succeed is how we collaborate, we in the team members, and also a project can also fail if things doesn't work out. So today I will be sharing the migration story project that I have experienced years ago. So my mission was to move an ASP.NET application that was old. It was about 15 years old. It was in .NET 4.4, and everything were on premise. We had like servers on Windows 2008 R2, web servers, database servers, and both the different environments were on premise. And what we wanted is we want to move to Azure. We want to move to the cloud, and we want to make changes like implementing Power BI, because we had reporting servers on the on-premise. So we wanted to move to the cloud, and we decided to use Azure because Azure is a great cloud service. We are aware, most of us knows that Azure is a great cloud platform with security capabilities, geolocation, worldwide access, hybrid capability, and also our stack was in Microsoft stack in C Sharp, so it's in .NET. So we thought that Microsoft Azure was the perfect cloud platform for our project. So we were also aware that this one, this model, I think you've seen this also in the Microsoft documentation, that it's typical that we migrate and rehost, especially for monolithic architecture, and there's also different maturity levels for that. So we wanted the yellow one here. This is what we were trying to do, and then we planned on to modernize up to the right. So we tried everything. We tried the 3 Rs. We tried and did it all. So there's the first option that we tried is to do a rehost, which means that we tried to lift and shift those old Windows servers and databases into Azure virtual machines, like an infrastructure as a service. But that didn't work because after some discussions and planning and try, we found out, or the organization thought that it was too expensive to move all those unsupported Windows 98 R2 systems to the cloud. And back then, we didn't know. We were like new into Azure. And I was the only one in the team that could actually like had a bit of idea of what Azure is. So that didn't work. So we tried the refactor part, in which we refactored all the front end and back end in the system, and then try to remove all the old code and technical debts and bugs in the system. And we did that, but there were too much complex. It was a complex system, and there were too much errors that we did. We tried to move it to web app service after updating everything, NuGet package and everything, but that didn't work either. So we tried another alternative. We tried to do re-architect and rebuild, which means that instead of having the old scrappy code or projects in the same way as it is and move it to the cloud, we decided to like create the system as new, or re-architect or rebuild as a .NET Core instead of .NET 4.7 at that time, which was the minimum version of .NET that's supported for the app service. And that actually worked. It was a success. It went well. We had planned on the back end, front end design, and redesigned the identity and databases. So that went well. But the team was not really big. So it was only me and another developer were assisting me to kind of plan, to to code, and also to plan. But we were like 2 developers only, and it's a small team. So it was a big cloud migration project for a small team, and it was me that was 100% dedicated to migrate that system. And then in parallel, on the side, I also had to like maintain, like enhancing the system and fixing bugs. So it was a big one for a small team. So I was like a superwoman from the start. And at the end, after several months in that project, migration project, I went 404, which means that I had too much to do. I was kind of like alone in the project because I was the only one that was motivated to be in that migration project, and the rest of the team were just depending on all the things that I do, and it was one woman force project, and unfortunately, I went 404 to the point that the project was actually stopped. Not because I went 404. That's the reason why I went 404 maybe, but because the organization and even our clients were not willing to invest more time, money, and resources to move that complex and old project to the cloud. So that was stopped. So the project was stopped. So I took a break and I did some reflecting, and I gathered like top 8 lessons learned based on my software developer migration journey. And I also learned that it's not just in life that we like. It's not just in life that we have regrets. I mean, we shouldn't have regrets, but we also have lessons learned. So what I my first lesson learned from that experience is that it is important to plan our migration and have a strategy, which means that we need to do our homework. It's very important for organization to define their cloud migration strategy, and it's also important to define what are really our business requirements. So we cannot just like hop or move to the cloud without really identifying all these important plans and strategies. And we also need to know what it is for the organization to upgrade or move to the cloud. And then the next thing that I learned is also we need to pay our technical debt. For my experience in that project, we had to fix a lot of bugs and a lot of old technologies that were not supported, replace them with the supported one. And there were a lot of outdated dependencies. The system was not well documented, and there were a lot of scrappy duplicate data in the database. So it is important that we take care or we pay our technical debt first before we move to the cloud. And the next one is we also need to fix our, let's see, we also need to be cloud ready, which means that cloud transformation starts from the organization's top to bottom, which means it shouldn't be from bottom to up, like developers only that wants to move to the cloud. It should start from the top of the organization, and it should be a transformation for everyone, not just a specific team in the company. And it is important to have a knowledge and readiness as well as expertise about cloud, especially if you're choosing Azure. Then it's good to like improve, like do skills, upgrading the skills of your employees into that organization. And we also need to prepare our cloud superheroes team to implement the plan and the cloud strategy. So, cloud readiness is very important before we start and go for it. And the next one is the 4S to successful cloud journey. So 4S means start small, smart step to success, which means that you don't have to rush moving up. You need to define steps in moving to the cloud. I will be sharing about cloud adaptation framework, in which it is divided into different sections. And next one would be data. The data that you move to the cloud is also important, which means that before you move the existing databases that you have on premise, you also need to identify what's your data storage strategy. For example, in Azure, we have a lot of great services for databases. For example, Azure SQL, Cosmos DB for NoSQL. So if you on your on-premise you already have like data that can make use of Azure SQL, probably you need to re-architect or redesign your databases or tables to work with the cloud, and also not just to work with the cloud, but to also improve what you currently have. And also, we need to consider as well the data protection, privacy, and compliance and security on when we're moving to the cloud. And next one is DevOps, and Dev and Ops should be in sync, which means that the collaboration between the developers and IT Ops, for example, QA, IT manager, Scrum Master, and business owners, should be in sync. For example, in that project, it was kind of like challenging because we developers wanted to use Azure DevOps for like following up our tasks and our sprints, but the test wanted to use a normal Excel sheets to follow up on the test, and the other one wants to use Trello for the project manager wants to use Trello for following up the test. So this is the reason why it's important to start from the top, because it also aligns the developer team and the IT operations team in sync when it comes to the cloud project. And also, number 7 is that it's important to seek advice from experts. So, what we did wrong at that migration project is that uh, I was the only cloud expert, and unfortunately, the organization didn't have so much Microsoft contacts to contact to, and maybe not so proactive. So it is important to get help from cloud expert. If you cannot find help from cloud expert, then we can contact directly the cloud provider like Microsoft or whatever cloud provider that your company decides to go for. And learned experiences from others, and of course cloud migration is like a journey, just like every project that we have, regardless if it's an upgrade or maintenance. You also need to prepare, like the entire team needs also to prepare to fail and try again. It's like a trial and error journey, and we learn from every failure that we have. And also, next is security and identity. It's also important to plan already when migrating cloud security. And it is important to learn about the shared responsibility model. If you have been working with the cloud development, we are aware that we as organization have a trust relationship and responsibility with the cloud provider, depending on the deployment model that you choose, of course. And use the identity services in the cloud means that, for example, in that migration project that we had the normal identity, the old one, the ASP.NET identity, that all identity were saved in the SQL database. But when you move to Azure, for example, maybe it's time to like make changes and make use of the Azure AD alternative and the identity platform and all that has built-in securities with it. And then next one would be this one. Oh, so that was the eighth one. So out of that 8 lessons, I wanted to share that it's better to succeed slowly than failing fast. So I decided to share with you what should have been done based on that lessons and the failure of that project. And what I wanted to share is migration to Azure tips, because I don't want everyone or those that are in the same journey to make the same wrong moves that we did in that project or in that team. So the first thing that I would like to recommend to everyone is the Cloud Adoption Framework, or it's also known as CAF. for Azure. It is a collection of documentation, technical guides, and best practices that organizations can use for cloud migration. It has several parts. First is there's a defined strategy, which is like the inner core, defined strategy, and then you plan, you adapt, ready, and then in the entire process you manage and govern, and also at the entire process also you need to organize. And this is how it looks as an overview. So in defined strategy section, you need to the organization need to define the business justification and expected outcomes for the adoption. This is when we the organization needs to prioritize and choose which first project they want to move to the cloud. And it also means that we need to identify the cloud migration triggers. For example, many wants to move to the cloud because of innovation triggers, but it can be both of them. So some wants to move to the cloud because they want to save costs, reduce complexity, and at the same time, they also want to migrate because they want to innovate their products, like transform products and modernize it. So, oi, oi, oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay, so the next one would be the next part of this the strategy would be the Azure cost management tools, which means that you can make use of the Azure pricing calculator, the TCO calculator, to estimate your total cost of ownership, and also the Azure cost management and budget alerts. When you're ready in Azure, you can set budget alerts to kind of like analyze how much monthly cost you have on the cloud. And the next phase is the plan, that you align your actionable adoption plans to business outcomes. So this is where you make actions from you plan your strategy. So you have the skill readiness plan, the cloud adoption plan, and you align your organization with that plan as well. And then for that section or that phase, there are actually 5 R's of rationalization of digital estate. So this is what I mentioned earlier as well, that we tried both the rehost, refactor, re-architect, rebuild, and new. And sometimes if all those four doesn't really work, then you just have to replace, which means that you replace your current application with a hosted application that meets all the functionalities in the cloud. And we were pretty close to replacing that entire system as new as well. So there are different R's for this, depending on the current status of your system already. And the next one is adopt. That's when you have the migration triggers. The true triggers, which was the migrate or to innovate. And you can do both of them in parallel and make use of the tools that are available depending on the category. So for migrate, there's Azure Migration Guide, Innovation Guide, and best practices as well, that's recommended based on the cloud adoption framework. And next one would be govern and manage. That's where in all the process from plan, ready, and adapt, you govern and manage, which means that for govern, you govern the environments and workloads, and set up the governance maturity. And then the manage is that it's operation management for cloud and hybrid solutions. And in the entire process, all steps strategy, plan, ready, adapt, govern, and manage. You also need to organize, which means you align the teams and roles supporting your organization's cloud adoption efforts. And you can actually read more about the specific. This is just an overview, but there's a very good documentation about cloud adoption framework through this link or in the Microsoft Docs as well. And then part of this migration journey or recommendation is also the Azure Migrate. So there is a great tool in Azure called Azure Migrate that you can use in migrating servers, databases, and you also have like different tools for assessments that you can make use of as well. So if you go to the Azure portal and search for Azure Migrate, you can get started getting tools for the database migration and servers or whatever that you need. And part of it as well, there are assessments. So there are Microsoft assessments that are very good to have or make use of. For example, there's a cloud journey tracker if you want to track your cloud journey. And there's also the SMART tool, Strategic Migration Assessment and Readiness tool, and other tools. But if you go to Azure Migrate in the Azure portal, there are different options. And at both the assessments and also the tool that you need, depending if you want to do the server or database migration. And I want to share about this top 10 design principles for Azure applications. I really like it as a developer because it kind of like help us code better or design or architect our applications better for the cloud. And it will inspire us. For example, my most favorite one is this one, the first one, design for healing. So we should design our application, especially in a distributed system. We should design our system that in case failure happens, it should handle it. It should handle it when failure occurs. And also, design for evolution is one favorite part of I like as a developer, because we want to design our applications for evolution that it lasts for many years, even if we're gone. So it should be like in 10 years, or it should work in 15 years. So that's the good thing about moving to cloud, because it has that kind of like, all of this has this mindsets and principles. And designed to scale out, the cloud already does that. We have the option to set our settings for scaling out, and even auto scale. That is something that you cannot do on premise in metals, so you can't do that. So that's a great thing. And for learning resources for CAF, Cloud Adoption Framework, I would recommend this link. This like the shortcut aka.ms/CAF. And also there are learning modules for Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure in best practices checklist. So what I'm presenting right now is just an overview, and also shared my story as well. And lastly, don't rush rocket flying up to the cloud. And that's because by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. And thank you so much. And tack så mycket. Yeah, thank you. And if you want a copy of the presentation, you can have this code, scan the QR code.
Right. Thank you for that presentation. I see we have had a little discussion on the YouTube where there are some questions about migrating .NET applications to Azure when you have an Oracle database. Is that something that you have any experience with or could offer some advice on?
I don't have that. Let's see. We have an Oracle database at the back end, but we cannot move Oracle database to Azure. Okay, I think there is actually, I haven't experienced it myself because the database that I migrated or tried to migrate was in SQL. I mean Microsoft SQL Server, but I believe there is a tool for migrating Oracle databases as well to Azure. And I don't know the exact name of that tool, but I can look it up for you, Ashish, and send it to you later. I know we're connected to LinkedIn, so I'll send it so I can help. Thank you.
Right. We have another one here. Which competencies do you wish you had as a part of a small team during the project you talked to us through? Also, how to structure the early game of such a project to ensure early wins momentum.
Oh, that's a very long. That's a
We'll
very long.
split it up in
Yes.
two parts. Which
Yes.
competences do you wish you had as a part of a small team during the project you talked us through?
Yeah, I think it's important to depending on the role that you have in the project. For example, I'm a developer. So if you are a developer, I would recommend to improve your competencies in Azure development. And a good start for it would be taking this certification. I mean, you don't have to, but I recommend taking the Azure Developer Associate certification. That would really help. And of course, we have the Microsoft Learn resources that are free for all of us. And that's for the first question. And how to structure the early game of such a project to ensure early wins or momentum. I think I would answer that to go back to the cloud adoption framework. To structure it, I think it's good to plan it first and design what's the strategy so that everyone in the team are aligned on the mission to move to the cloud. I hope it answers the question of Howard.
Mm.
Yes.
Feel free to follow up, Howard, if you want some more clarifications on that. We have some time for questions.
Yes.
So the next question is, what approaches did you use to address technical debts?
Yes, that's a very good question. We we started the project without a plan because the project manager have no idea of the cloud, what cloud is to start with, but we were leading it. But to we had different phases. There are different migration scenarios, as you can also read on the cloud adoption framework. But for example, tech debts, we had issues with the dependencies in the project. So we had to divide ourselves to first fix the dependencies problem, upgrade it, and we also had a separate part of it, of the tech debts, in which we need to clean up the database so it's not moved improperly to Azure SQL, for example. So so there are different phases for that, and the most challenging tech debt that we had was the servers. The servers were Windows 2008 R2, and at that time it was not supported, and it was tough to move that. So infrastructure as a service were not even an option for us. So I hope it helps or it answers the question.
Great. One more question here. So how is data migration in Azure different from other public clouds available in the market? Do you have any experience on that?
How I don't have any experience actually, because I'm on Microsoft stack and only tried Azure for now. But maybe, do you have any experience in that? I'm asking you.
No, I
No?
haven't tried it myself either. So
Yes.
it's an
But
interesting question, but I'm guessing
yes.
that they are different, but they kind of all want to achieve the same goal by getting customers to their platform. So
Mm,
I guess most of them would provide some tools if,
yes. There should
but how they're
be.
different, I'm not sure.
Yes, there should be a migration tool for that, especially now these days that we have the hybrid solutions and multi-cloud solutions. So I think that should be possible. That there should be something, but I'll check on that as well and get back to Deshant.
Hmm. How important was the planning of Azure Landing Zone, and what tools or methodologies can be adopted to cut migration delivery times?
Okay. Yes. I think the landing zone was a part of. I think it's one of the a part of the adapt phase, if I'm correct. So it is important to have the Azure landing zones to get started. And usually in Azure zone, you set up your first environment as you move to the cloud. And as what I've read, based on the information I read in the documentation, having the infrastructure as a code is pretty useful when moving environments to that landing zone. And of course, we get back to the cloud adoption framework for like the guidance. So it's a really good framework to follow. I hope it helps answer Leilu Hulno's Glenn's question.
Yeah, I think that was the last question, if I'm not mistaken. Cannot see any other questions as of now. I have one question, if I may. As
Yeah,
a
sure.
host, I can abuse my powers here to ask questions. And
You can do that. We have time. I see that I spoke I spoke with high speed.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So if you had access to a time machine and could go back to that initial project, do you know what you would do different, or would you still make the decision to take that application system into Azure? So it's two
Um
questions.
yes, the first question was two questions. We take one question at a time. The first question.
Yeah.
Can you repeat it?
So if you could take a time machine back to that project, what would you do different for how you kind of did that project? It seemed like you had many experiences during that project, and you
Yeah.
some of them, but let's focus on the migration part to Azure. Would you still do that migration with what you know now?
Yes, definitely. Actually, the reason why I'm very passionate about learning Azure, and that's the reason why I became an MVP for Azure and sharing knowledge about it, it's because of this migration experience. And if I was to go back in that migration project, I would go back to my colleagues and teach them cloud adoption framework. So I would do that. Yes, and I would still consider help. I mean, not help because I don't work there anymore, but I would consider like advising them the CAF framework, as well as to maybe to maybe continue with that project that we did, which is the rebuild new in .NET Core, because that was already prepared. It was like in the cloud already. It just need to be finished. So yeah, and of course, what could have been changed is that it should start from the organization's top, and it is also important to educate the clients, because the client in that project, they were not willing to invest on the resources because they thought cloud is not secure, and they thought the cloud was expensive. And I could prove them wrong if I were to talk to them today. So yeah, that's my answer to the
Yeah,
first question. Yeah.
thanks. We have we got one more question. Did you use Terraform or any similar infrastructure as a code tool?
Not for that project. Not really. But if I were to do the migration, I'm actually in a migration project right now, but we're still fixing the upgrades before we could move to the cloud. But I would use Terraform or similar tool in my next project in moving to Azure. And I'm in that. So thanks for the recommendation. I will do that.
All right.
Thank you.
Actually,
Yes, Shirash.
we got another question as well. So if you could have chosen the skill sets of your other team members during the migration project, what kind of roles would you have complemented your own? What roles would have complemented your own skills best?
Okay, let me just reflect on this question. If you have a, you could have, what kind of roles would have completed your own skills best? I think an Azure architect. I mean, to answer this question, we missed an Azure architect, a solution architect, and even though we developers were pretty good already, or were aware of the tool or the cloud the cloud platform itself. I think I believe in the power of collaboration. So I think we could use a good solution architect that knows how it works with both on-premise and how to protect the systems in different layers. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good advice
Yes.
for that part. Yeah. Yeah, I think that was the last question. So if I think we'll call it, say that was the last question, and we'll finish up.
Yeah, so I think we'll just say thank you so much both to Jonah, our speaker, and to all of you who has been watching this online, or maybe you're watching the recorded session on YouTube. And please have a look at our Cloud Scale Challenge, because as we said, you stand a chance here of winning a very nice Microsoft backpack. And in addition, we will also select one amongst you who has asked questions during tonight, who will also win the backpack. So with that said, I think we will just end our stream for now, and looking forward to see you next time.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching.
Bye.